There are many different types of animation, some of which you're probably already familiar with. So to start out this course, let's do a quick rundown of the different types of animation and what the differences and similarities are. Let's start with 3D animation, which is also called CGI, which stands for computer-generated imagery. This is the most popular type of animation for feature films currently, and it's become common in TV and short films as well. This is also the same type of animation used to create digital characters for live-action films, and animation for 3D video games. In 3D animation, an animator uses a digital puppet called a character rig to position a character and then use a system of motion paths, or splines, to define the movement of the character between those poses. From there, the computer creates all of the frames of the animation. 3D animation involves a technically intensive process which often involves many separate specialists to model the character, rig it with bones and controls, animate it, and then texture and light it for the final output. In this course, we're just focusing on that animation phase. Next, let's look at 2D animation. The first type of 2D animation might be called traditional animation or cell animation, but I prefer the term hand-drawn animation, because that's the most clear and relevant thing that distinguishes it. This is the classic kind of 2D animation that you're probably most familiar with. In the old days, animators drew characters frame by frame, and then those drawings were transferred onto clear acetate sheets called cells for painting. That's where the term cell animation comes from. However, through the 1990s, almost all animation studios stopped using cells and started scanning drawings into the computer for digital coloring. And now, many hand-drawn animators skip the paper too, and draw directly on the computer with a tablet or Wacom's Cintiq monitor. So hand-drawn animation could be done entirely analog or entirely digitally, or some mix of the two. And it still might even largely look the same. But the important thing is that hand-drawn animators still create their animation frame by frame using the same techniques and principles as in those old days of paper and cells. There are also new ways to create 2D animation using a 2D digital puppet. These are 2D characters built with a system of bones and controls that can be manipulated in a way similar to a 3D character rig. The difference between 2D rigged characters and hand-drawn characters can get a bit blurry though. Software like Toon Boom Harmony and Adobe Animate let you seamlessly mix and match hand-drawn animation with 2D puppet techniques, sometimes even within the same character. This character has bones that let the animator pose it, but it also has other parts that are animated by hand. The next big category is stop-motion animation. There are several variants of stop-motion, but they all involve manipulating real-world objects. In higher-end stop-motion, a specially rigged puppet is shot on a miniature stage. The rig is moved slightly and photographed one frame at a time. When the photos are shown in sequence, it creates the illusion of movement. You may have seen a similar technique called claymation, where malleable characters are used, though they're generally made out of a substance called plasticine, not actual clay. You can also do stop motion with regular figurines and objects, like all those great Lego animations. Another variation of stop motion is paper cutout animation. In this style, characters are built out of paper shapes. They might be pinned together at joints to make a posable figure, or pieces might be set in place so that they can be swapped out. They're then moved and photographed frame by frame, just like a stop-motion puppet. Another rarer type of stop-motion is called pixelation. In pixelation, real people are used instead of puppets. All of these types of stop-motion share an important characteristic. They all have to be shot straight ahead, which means starting at frame 1 and shooting each frame one after another all the way through the end of the scene. If a mistake is made on one frame, it's very difficult to fix it without having to start all over again. You can't just redraw one drawing. That makes stop motion a particularly intense and difficult type of animation. The last big category of animation is motion graphics. Motion graphics focuses on making dynamic and interesting presentations of moving text, logos, and basic illustrations. It's common to see both 2D and 3D motion graphics. You'll find them everywhere in commercials, explainer videos, and TV productions. Proper character animation is generally outside the scope of motion graphics, but many of the principles we'll be going over in the course apply to motion graphics too. Hopefully this overview has given you an idea of what kinds of animation you'd like to explore. In the next video, we'll go over some of the vocabulary we'll be using over the course of these lessons. I'll see you there!